Hello and welcome back, everyone, to the Utopia Experience live stream, and happy Halloween. My name is Sheldon Price. I'm your moderator for a session that hopefully won't be too spooky at all. Today's session is Wellness-Driven Events, Designing Experiences that Energize. To speak on this topic, we have two amazing guests for you. First up, Joey Goon, the president of Utopia Experience. It's a leading event company specializing in AV production, videography, and event planning based here in St. Louis, Missouri. But Joey's work isn't just limited to Missouri. I mean, Utopia produces events all around the Midwest, beyond. We're just returning from an event in Texas, and next week we're heading to New Mexico. On top of that, Joey is a dynamic public speaker and an active member of the Entrepreneurs Organization. And our other guest here today is David T. Stevens, a prominent wellness event architect and co-founder of Olympian Meetings. With over 2 decades of experience, he is dedicated to incorporating holistic wellness practices into corporate events, emphasizing the importance of 4 foundational pillars: movement, mindfulness, meals, and meaning. As a speaker and host of the web series Return on Wellness, David is passionate about the intersection of well-being and productivity, advocating for wellness as a key component of event success. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. And honestly, Joey, that straw you were drinking out of after he said the AV thing, it looked like a mini jack. I was like, are you drinking water out of it? Are you plugging yourself in?
So I have a
right. It looks like a mini jack. It looks like a headphone mini jack.
In and out. It actually it plugs me into the Witches for Wellness group. So yeah, that's who I'm here advocating for today. Witches for Wellness, and this is my pumpkin spice latte here with a little bit of chai in it. But I would say forget pumpkin spice altogether, because witches have been brewing portions for centuries that are far, far better than pumpkin spice lattes. But yes, to answer the old question on the straw, I have Invisalign retainers, and so I have to drink my coffee out of a straw so I don't stay in the retainers. That is the literal answer there. That's what's going on.
I am on my last set of trays that I'm using, but it's only at night, so I can drink coffee like a normal person during the day.
Isn't that awesome? And for me, it gives me something to talk about on LinkedIn Lives.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, for any of our audience, if you out there listening and you're wearing Invisalign, let us know in the chat. Or if you have any other questions for Joey and David, put that in the chat as well. We'll be answering everything on this stream, but then it's also living afterwards here on LinkedIn, on Facebook, YouTube. So put any of your questions in the chat, and then we'll do our best, even after this event is over, to keep answering any questions you have. But to get us started, I'm going to throw it over to you guys, and then I'm going to disappear into the background. But David, I know you're known for incorporating wellness into corporate events. Can you start off by sharing how you first became passionate about integrating wellness into event planning, and then tell us a little bit more about those 4 pillars of wellness?
Yeah. So it all started. I started with my own wellness journey, if you will, where basically I was living in Milwaukee. I had adopted the Wisconsin lifestyle, lots of beer, lots of brats, and I wasn't really taking care of myself. And I ended up being, how to say this eloquently. I was unexpectedly single, and I was like, I should probably do something about this situation here and start taking care of myself. And that kind of started. I ended up becoming a spin instructor, and then I started lifting weights, and fast forward a couple years, and I was still in events. I ended up becoming a full-time employee at 24 Hour Fitness, which is a pretty well-known gym chain on the West Coast. And I was their head of events. And I was like, this is my dream job. I don't have to think about if people are going to complain if there's egg whites or, those kinds of things. I felt like this is exciting because I get to plan a meeting with the food and the activities that I would want. And fast forward, after being there for a couple of years, I ended up leaving, and I started borrowing some of those lessons I learned there and implementing them at other companies when I worked there. And then fast forward about, I don't know, maybe five or so years, and my now co-founder and I were at lunch or brunch, and she's like, why are meetings why do you always have a conference hangover after like an event, right? Like your inbox is wrecked. You're 5 pounds heavier, maybe 10 pounds heavier. You don't feel good. You just want to sleep. You want to dig it, crawl into a hole and disappear for, 36 hours and then come back out. And I was like, well, it doesn't have to be that way. Like at 24, it was never like that. People left energized. And she's like, why don't people do meetings like that? And we're like, I guess they just don't know how. So that's where this started. And then fortunately, that was 2019 when we were talking about it. And we thought about going out to market, and then the market shut down for a little bit for, some unexpected things. And that's when I experienced some mental health awareness. And when I say mental health awareness, I will say in like April, May, I'd been home for 4 months. I was trim, I was tan. I felt great physically, but mentally I was in a really dark place. And I was talking to my friend, and she was like, well, what are you doing for your mental health? And I was like, I don't need your crystals and nonsense. Just leave me alone. I'll figure it out. I'll go lift heavier weights. It'll be fine. And that's when I realized that it wasn't something I could just ignore, that I had to actually pay attention to it. And that's when the lights started to come on for me. And the fun part of our company name is Olympian Meeting. And when you think Olympian, you think fierce competition, intense, Michael Phelps kind of thing. But our nickname is OWN, which is the other end of the spectrum, right? So, and everyone's somewhere in between. And then all the stuff came out with Simone Biles during the Olympics that year, and she was struggling with mental health, and it was really eye-opening for me. And we realized that there was something to this. And so we dug in, we found the research around how physical activity impacts brain health and cognitive function, how sleep impacts it, how feeling like you belong to something bigger than you impacts it, how you can eat in a way that impacts it. And long story short, we came back from the pandemic with our first event, and I had pretty good, I like to call it trust equity. When you're like the head of events and you can just get away with things, which there's some people can do. I just tried all the things that we thought of at our company kickoff, and our survey results skyrocketed. So it was very obvious that there was something tangible there. And yeah, so that was kind of what we realized, that it was worth diving into this full time.
First of all, you mentioned at the beginning of just sort of, sharing who you are and your background, that you found yourself single. The antidote to being single is drinking out of one of these straws. If you drink out of one of these straws when you're drinking your coffee, the females will just flock to you in spades. It's unbelievable. Now, I wouldn't know that. I'm a very happily married man. I've been married for 5 years.
That's why you drink it at home in private, right?
I'm married. Yes. Right. Do it at home, because no one can jump through the camera. So I too had a very, very similar experience with sort of finding wellness. And I just thought, wellness for such a long time was lifting heavier weights. And wellness for me now is, I have this book behind me, The Miracle Morning, that I reference quite often. And are you familiar with this? Have you heard of Hal's work?
No, I haven't.
In there, just to summarize, in there, he talks about SAVERS. It's an acronym that he uses for miracle morning practices. And so every morning I do silence, I meditate, I do affirmations, visualization, exercise. So exercise is one component of the SAVERS. Exercise and scribing, just writing down what I'm grateful for, or writing little love notes to my daughter. And so wellness for my wife and I has really become this holistic sort of experience, and something that we incorporate into our daily lives. And I think for us, and really as a generation, this younger generation is very, very mindful about this topic, because it matters to more of us, because we have more access to information around food and how it affects us, and cognitive health and behavior, and all the elements that you just spoke of. You mentioned anyway, I guess summarizing all of that, and the reason why I'm sharing that is because there's sort of an analogous, I think that there's a lot of parallels in our journey. And this is why, I really sought to have you on the podcast, because I've been following your work for quite some time and found it very inspiring. Can we go back to that first event that you mentioned a moment ago? What exactly was it that you did at that first event where your team afterwards was like, had that reflection of, wow, I think there is something here? What were the things you did?
Yeah. So, and it was in a very unlikely place. Our host venue was in Las Vegas, which is not somewhere that you would think of when you think wellness necessarily. I mean, Caesars is doing a heck of a job promoting wellness now, but at the time, Las Vegas and wellness were not two things that went hand in hand. What we did, it was really simple. And I think that's what people overthink what wellness can be. So we took a look at our agenda and asked ourselves, how long are the sessions? What time do we start? What time do we end? And if we're doing something late at night, maybe let's call it optional so that if people don't want to do it, they can go to bed instead of like after party. And then everyone feels like they have to be there because their boss is there. And all of our after parties were, they said optional on the agenda. And our main functions were done by like at the latest 10 p.m. And we started at 9:30 or 10 a.m. So agenda was our first thing. Then our general session room had seated, like soft seating at the front, classrooms in the middle, standing tables at the back. So that there's always people who are going to stand, always, every single time. So give those people a place to stand so that they feel like they're seen and a part of the event and whatnot.
I love the physiology of standing too, right? Like I love that you were thinking about that intentionally, giving people the option to just like physiologically, if you need to move the energy in your body, like you have a space to do that in the general session room.
Yeah. And honestly, this is what I mean when I talk about mindfulness. I'm not necessarily talking about meditation when I say mindfulness. I'm talking about being mindful of your attendee and what you're expecting of them, right? This is a multi-million-dollar event that we're investing in our internal employees. So let's treat them and stack the deck for them so that they learn and grow and have solid takeaways. So we started a little later in the morning, but with that, and because of our session lengths, we didn't have to lose any sessions because the sessions were shorter. So if you need to do 6 sessions and everyone wants 45 minutes, well, that takes a lot of time, right? If you need to do 6 sessions and each of them's 20 minutes, that's 3 hours. Boom, done. So that was one portion of it. So then because we were able to start later, we said, okay, well, what are we going to do with the mornings? We got the gym to open early in Vegas because they're notorious for opening at like 8 a.m. And we just got the hotel to open it early for the cost of the attendant. And then we offered, especially because we had European attendees, and they're going to be up at like 4 or 5 in the morning anyways. So give them a place to go if they want. The next thing we did was we offered various intensities of workouts. So what we did was we did a body weight boot camp and we did a yoga, and then the gym was also open. And then our CRO, because he's very intense, he's like, well, what time did the workout start? And I was like, 7. He goes, great. I'm going to do a 6:30 a.m. run club because I want to do both. Okay, cool, psycho. Have fun with that. And so he did a run club, and then 2 or 3 people from the run club would come to that with him. And then after that, we did a mindfulness session so that people could either go from the workouts to the mindfulness session, or they could come down for breakfast, just straight to the mindfulness session and then go have breakfast. All our meals were 90 minutes. So breakfast was 90 minutes. Lunch was 90 minutes. So
more time and space to reflect and connect and decompress from the actual
and be with your people, right? Yeah. So then we did so we had 90-minute lunches. We had lots of breaks. We picked a space that had a ton of natural light, which is also rare in Vegas. And then we paid close attention to our menus. And we made sure that because we had done all this science, like, one, you really only ever need to order 80% of your attendees' breakfast. It's just the fact of the matter. People are going to run late, blah, blah, blah. Like, not everyone eats breakfast. But we had done the research and realized the cognitive benefits of providing protein first thing in the morning and how it impacts cognitive function. Let alone, I had a software engineer tell me that when he has a high protein breakfast, he doesn't have to take his ADD meds. wild when you think about it, considering 25% of the population identifies on some level of having some type of ADD, ADHD. So we provided a high protein breakfast. And then the last thing we did, so that's mindfulness. We got our movement in, right? Both with the movement in the room and the actual physical movement. And then we got our meals in, which was quality food. Plus it was nice and colorful. Everyone eats with their eyes first. And then the last thing was our meaning. And everyone has a circadian rhythm. And there is what's called the postprandial dip, which is our afternoon slump. It's unavoidable. It just is what it is. If you ever need to close a contract, have some coffee, schedule that contract closing meeting right after lunch, and you will close them. But we all know the slump. So what we did was we used that time to bond people together. We did a CSR activity, a community social responsibility, where we built prosthetic hands with our teams. And then we also, we did OKRs, which is objectives and key results for people that aren't familiar with that. Because what that did was that gave everyone a sense of meaning, because they were connecting to people on a level that was bigger than just themselves.
Love that. I love the idea of bringing wellness and mindfulness into an event and really focusing on like the mental component, the emotional component, the physical and the spiritual component. And how do you sort of touch all of those different pieces of people's psyche during the experience, and so I love how you're approaching wellness as sort of overall, a concept and a construct.
Well, and the idea wasn't to make this real obvious thing. Like I said, I just kind of did some things. Nobody asked me about the menu. Are we going to have food? Yes. It'll be good food. I promise. Okay, cool. That was it. Nobody was reviewing my menus, which is the easiest thing people can do. Adding the high boys to the back of the room cost me nothing. The soft seating at the front of the room, that was like $500 for some housemen to move some furniture. The agenda, that was the tough one, because we had to get executives to buy into talking less. That's not an easy one. And the workouts, we did 3 workouts a day. The boot camp, yoga, and the mindfulness session for 3 days in a row. $900. That's it. So people think they get all wound around the axle about like, oh, wellness is so expensive. No, it's not. If you're intentional about it, it's not.
I've seen wellness incorporated into events in really interesting ways too myself. And I wanted to share, because I always of course my mind goes to great wellness. So there's workouts in the morning, opportunities for us to, to take care of our bodies, to eat clean, healthy, whole foods. I think those elements, at least for me in the past, have always been how I think about incorporating wellness into events. And now that
we're live, I just got a low battery warning.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
Hi, everyone. This is absolutely live. Let me just
grab whatever you need to grab.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. This is wildly embarrassing.
Oh, it's okay. What are you streaming on? Is it your camera or is it the iPad?
No, I'm actually streaming on a laptop.
Oh, amazing. Well, while you're doing that, I will continue to unpack my thought. You're wearing a headphone, right? So you can hear the thought and then respond to it in a moment. I'm going to assume that's a yes.
Yeah, I said yes.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah.
So, I was thinking about wellness activities like this recent event that I attended. We had a former Navy SEAL take us through a Wim Hof breathing exercise. And by the way, physiologically if you want to change the physiology of a group, within 10 minutes and have this incredibly up-leveled energy in your experience, try bringing in some type of facilitator to lead y'all through Wim Hof. If you want to take it one step further than that, invite people to jump into ice baths afterwards. That's something that my group did. And it was incredible. Like this community of individuals jumping into ice baths. We actually have a friend of ours that wants to break the world record of the number of people in a ballroom jumping into an ice bath simultaneously, which will be interesting.
I would love to be a part of that.
Oh, hell yeah. We'll get you more information. But I think, like, to your point, it doesn't have to be this like this magnificent, like, heavy lift, like something like that that's very expensive. It could just quite simply be being more mindful of, opportunities for people to focus on wellness, and also conversation. Conversation is something that is so underutilized. If we should think that the best events are the ones that pack all of these different tracks into them, and we don't create the space for reflection, community building, and conversation.
No, especially because people learn things different ways and they take away information differently. And if you don't give people the opportunity to decompress with other people. So I did this exercise once at, I was an MC at the Social Media Marketing World, which that was a wild event, but people would gather. So each session was like 30 to 45 minutes. And then it was a half hour in between for people to move about, which was great. But people would come into the room and they'd sit down and we'd do a little warm-up exercise with everyone. I'd say, okay, we have 10 minutes before the session starts. So look to your left, look to your right, look in front of you, behind you, whatever, and reach out to that person and talk to them about the last session you were in. It might've been in this room. It might've been in a different room. Have that conversation and see what happens, because just because both of us are sitting in the room next to each other, right? The same words are entering our ears doesn't mean we're going to have the same takeaways, because we're all different human beings. And the amount of chatter that came out of that room, I kind of was like, this may not have been a good idea, because I don't know if I'm going to get these people to stop talking. It was phenomenal. And I think all too often, there was just a survey by Freeman or someone, I don't know, the team over at Club Ichi, Liz Lathan, she just put it out, about the difference between what organizers think people want and what people actually want.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And they don't.
What was it?
You can take a class online. You can watch a YouTube video if you want to learn something. You go to an event in person to connect with other people.
Yeah, we always talk about the 3 C's. The 3 C's for us are the reason why people go to events. Number 1 is content. That's the first C. Number 2 is connection, is the second C, because people no longer just come for content. You can get content online. So you're coming for connection, and third, you're coming for community. And if you can create the space and the environment for people to create community, that's going to create an element of stickiness. It's going to make people not just want to come, but come back to your event in the future.
Again and again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We might have spent $2,500, maybe $5,000 on all the quote wellness we did. But here's where the rubber meets the road. Our net promoter score on that event from the last time we did it in person, we had an 8.2 net promoter score on a scale of 1 to 10, which is pretty good. Went from an 8.2 to a 9.4.
Amazing.
And that's with over 80% of the attendees taking the survey. That is because we hid the link to the pictures at the end of the survey, so they wouldn't get it until that's a different thing. But the thing is, I think what made it a little easier was the fact that people left in a way that they wanted to give feedback because they actually enjoyed themselves.
David, I want to thank you so much for being with us today. We're getting to the point where we're low on time, so I just wanted to kind of summarize a little bit of what you're saying, and then pick your brain with one final question. I know you kind of talked about those your 4 pillars of wellness, telling us about mindfulness, movement, meals, and meaning. Now, what is something like, what trends do you see looking to the future? You know, the rise of virtual hybrid events. What is the future of wellness and event planning? What, for all these event planners who are out there listening, what do you think they should be paying attention to in wellness moving forward? What are some small things they can incorporate? What's just some advice you have for those event planners out there?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to start and the easiest lift is pay attention to your menus. And with that, also focusing on being more sober inclusive. 38% of the adult population doesn't drink. 38%. And to make that number sink in a little more, if your event budget was increased by 38%, what would you do with that? That's massive, right? So that many people don't drink alcohol. And Gen Z, there's some, I think it's like 25% have never drank alcohol. But just because they're not drinking alcohol, to quote this gentleman who I just sat and moderated a panel with, Carl Radke, who is from Bravo TV's Summer House, he said he had a conversation with his bartender that said, just because you aren't drinking alcohol doesn't mean you deserve any less of an experience. And yeah, exactly. Like it is such a great, poignant thing that don't give me kids' drinks and don't give me 200 grams of sugar. Give me something I can drink in a glass that looks like everyone else's so that I feel like I'm a part of the group, regardless of why I don't drink, because it's nobody's business.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. Just the full thought right now of being mindful is really like changing the way I'm thinking about something, just going one step further and thinking about your attendees and one step further and really understanding everybody at a base human level. This is, I think, very, very important and something that often gets overlooked.
I just want to add one thing to that. Like, so I know you were probably thinking about, the post conference sort of like, welcome reception dinners and whatnot. We can also do, non-alcoholic healthy drinks in the morning, right? Like we just did a conference. The conference was sponsored by Vitamix. Vitamix came in and at their own expense created, they prepared green juices for everyone. Now that's expensive, right? But of course to put Vitamix in their name, like they're a massive organization. Like they wanted to be out there offering that level of, wellness and great nutrition in the morning for the 500 of us that were in attendance. And that was a fantastic way for them to do that. And then the conference organizers, there was a QR code you could scan for a certain percentage off of a Vitamix blender if you wanted to purchase one. So
the other thing I'll add is if you're going to do smoothies in the morning, they got to have protein. Like, please, for the love of God, add protein to the breakfast smoothies.
Yeah, a little scoop of pea protein or whey protein. Heck yeah.
I've seen it done. There's a hotel in San Antonio. There was a hotel group that held an executive event, and their spa came in because that's where they sell it, of course. So they can charge probably $14 a smoothie or whatever. But they had like the bags of protein, and they even had the macros on it.
Amazing.
And I was like,
my mind is blown.
I've never
by the way,
seen this.
I just started tracking macros, David, and it's like the reticular activating system, where like you never see the yellow Honda, but then you own the yellow Honda and you see the yellow Honda everywhere. I've just started tracking macros, working with a nutrition coach and a weightlifting coach. And I thought I knew a lot about my body physiologically, biologically. And what I'm learning now is just mind blowing. And the cool part about it is I didn't even realize how many people are very mindful of tracking their macros. Like we just came off of a conference, a show we were producing. And I also had the privilege of attending because I'm a part of the association. And I was just chopping it up, hanging out at one of the receptions afterwards, one of the, the networking activities. And there's like a group of 10 of us talking about, tracking our macros and I like, there are just so many people out there that I think as we are event conveners and event organizers thinking about this, it is something that it's being like so widely adopted, like mindfulness around health and wellness and nutrition, that we need to pay attention to it as organizers.
Well, and here's this is somebody said something to me. I got to present at a group called ICA, the International Congression of Conference Associations or something like that. I'm sorry, ICA, I totally botched your name, but it's all association executives who belong to it. And there was a woman there who has a PhD and an MD, dual threat. She's from Geneva, and she introduced me, and she's the executive director of a global association of public health executives. She said, I know you think you're just doing health and wellness at events, but what you're really doing is public health. And that blew my mind, because when you think about it, we are responsible. Think about a conference like IMEX, right? 15,000 people. That's a small town. They are then responsible for the health and wellness of that group, including their safety and all those other things, right? We have a responsibility as conference organizers that I think we forget, that this isn't just a nice to have. Now, some people are going to want to go off the rails because they're all disciplined all the time and they go to a conference and they do what they do. Cool, whatever. Don't leave those people out either. But we do this to bring people together, and by giving those people the opportunity to keep living their life the way they normally live it, that's what we should be doing.
That's such a powerful note to end on.
Yeah, agreed. And for everyone out there who maybe wants to hear more of you, David, where can they find you? I'm going to put in our LinkedIn where they can find you on social media, and I've got it scrolling at the bottom of the page right now.
In the spooky text.
It's spooky. It's a spooky day. So
happy Halloween, everyone.
I know they can find you here on LinkedIn and YouTube, but where else, if they're trying to find more of you, is there another place, or would you recommend them check you out on LinkedIn, on YouTube?
Yeah, that's where I put most of my energy. I mean, you'll probably get sick of Dodger stuff over the next month on Instagram or TikTok. But yeah, I would say please follow me. Follow my page on LinkedIn. Every Wednesday we do a thing called Wellness Washing Wednesday, where we hold people accountable for shenanigans in the wellness space. The people that say, "Oh, you should do a coffee enema because blah 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 blah" or whatever. We remind people that wellness is personal, it's individual, and it's not expensive.
Did you just potentially plant a seed for a future episode? Are we going to do coffee enemas live?
I mean, if you want to, you're welcome to do it, and I will be happy to bring a doctor to tell you why it doesn't do anything for you.
All right.
I think that's one of the other things. So I'm married to an MD. So when we find research, I run it by her, and she's like, "Did you find this on Reddit? What kind of ridiculousness is this?" "No, I found it on the National Health Institute website." "Oh, okay, let me take a look." We believe in research. We believe in peer reviews, all of those things, because there's so many shenanigans out there. So, not everything's going to work for everyone, but figure out what works for you and do it.
Excellent. David, thank you so much for being here today. This has been a fantastic conversation to listen in on. And for anybody out there who still have any questions, leave them in the chat. And I'm sure Joey and David will do their best to answer any that come in. And until next time, we'll see you. This is Utopia Experience.
As long as they're not about coffee enemas.
That one in particular.